And this is probably the year that if you didn't already have a good foundation on the website, that now you're going to need to go ahead and rebuild. Because if you want to be able to show up in these search snippets and you want to be able to show up and be effective in this larger ecosystem, the websites that we built 5 years ago do not work for what's coming ahead. Hey there, welcome to the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. I am Jennifer.
And I'm Corey.
And today we're going to talk about what you need to be doing so that you can thrive in this new era of AI, specifically as it relates to showing up on that front page of Google and really leaning into SEO fundamentals so that when AI is looking for you, you're there.
Yeah, so let's start and set the stage a little bit. We have been talking about AI a ton on this show, and with good reason. It's honestly, it's starting to take over, everything that we do from a marketing side, but it's really starting to shift the way that consumers are finding your practice. Some good examples of that. So there's Apple Intelligence now that's rolling out on all the new phones, meaning that when you ask Siri something, it actually uses ChatGPT to find the answers in many cases. And so we're seeing from our side a shift in the way that people are searching and then receiving information. Now, of course, Google's still number one, so still reigns supreme, king, however you want to say it. But people are not clicking the results as much as they used to. And we're seeing that in our reporting right now. And so what's happening is if you Google something, you get the AI summary at the top for a lot of queries, not all of them, but a lot. And in that AI summary is your answer. And if you get your answer there, Google can cite as many things as it wants to, but people aren't going to click on that because they got the answer and they moved on. So what we have been prepping and we are currently doing for clients and we're getting ready to do in 2026 is adjust for this AI answer, which really is shifting the way that the search engines are used. And I cannot stress that enough, that we are at the wave of a change. This is the very beginning, and this is the time to make these changes and take advantage of the fact that your competitors, your larger hospital systems and things, maybe they're not doing those, but we can be nimble and we can do this now and we can make some real gains here.
Yeah. And what we're really looking at is, think about it in terms of SEO, search engine optimization back in the day. Well, good SEO fuels the answers that AI is looking for. So whether it's from strategy to structure of your website, you've got to have a plan on how you're going to evolve your approach so that you are visible to those AI platforms. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So Corey, why don't you start with, I know we've done this in other episodes, but let's just go ahead and do it because it came up at the MGMA again this past week that I was at. What do some of these new terms mean and what should we be doing just so we have enough information to be dangerous?
Yeah, so SEO, like you said, is the search engine optimization. That's the thing that we're all familiar with and why we want to build websites and create content and all that jazz. That's how we show up. So the new terms, there's AEO, which is Answer Engine Optimization, and that focuses on optimizing content. So it's chosen as the answer in something like Google's AI overview, which I talked about a minute ago. Then there's GEO, which is Generative Engine Optimization, which basically is the same thing, but it's just kind of a broader approach. So you show up across different AI platforms. Because what's happening is a couple months ago, the big AI platforms, you could search, but they were kind of limited. Like they couldn't go out to the internet and do things. Well, that's old news. So now all these different platforms, your ChatGPT, your Claude, Perplexity, Gemini, you name it, they can all search for consistent information. And so what they're trying to do, and if you actually use a Google AI summary, it will show you a counter as it searches something. So it'll actually say like, searching 737 websites, here's your answer. So that's what we're talking about doing is showing up in those kinds of responses. And so this generative engine optimization or GEO, what it does, it's kind of like a new layer that sits above SEO. So these tools, let's use ChatGPT as an example, that will search and compile the information. The way it's finding that information is through this GEO. And a lot of that is built off of a strong SEO kind of structure, but then there are some things to know.
All right, so let's talk about what are some of the strategic foundations if you're looking to get into kind of that GEO space? Because GEO is really that extension of SEO. So,
Correct.
what do you have to do if you want to really get into that space and kind of own it?
Yeah. So what these engines are trying to do is the same thing that was that SEO was trying to do, which is it's going to quickly look at a bunch of different indicators and say, okay, so I have someone that's come here and they are asking about chronic knee pain and when to see a physician about that. So they're in the, you know, Illinois, like Chicago, Illinois area. So who knows what they're talking about in that area? Who has domain authority there? Who's trustworthy? Let's surface an answer that's gonna help them. And so the way that you do that is you lean on the kind of SEO pillars. So again, you want to show like real expertise. That is content, that is interviews, that is proprietary data, that is videos, that is FAQs do really well in these because again, these GEO models are trying to find answers quickly. So if you have an SEO friendly page, but then you add in, for example, these FAQs, then the model, when it goes to find it, so ChatGPT in this example, when it goes to find something, it's going to scan that page quickly, see that there's an answer to this question, and that helps surface those to the top. So if you lean into the fact that you are an expert in your space, you are, in the example I'm giving here, an orthopedic provider in this specific geographic market, these provide AI with something new, something worth citing, something that's authoritative, and that's how you show up in those.
Yeah, and something else is like we're seeing that AI traffic like coming to the homepage is even starting to surpass organic traffic that's out there as well. So we have to pay attention to this because the branding on our homepage is so important because that's what's going to start showing up in these snippets because branding is going to be key as we move forward from like the traditional SEO to now incorporating these additional layers in what we're paying attention to because there's some studies that are showing that traffic is truly starting to shift and we're seeing it as well.
Yeah, 100%. And also I think, like we mentioned at the top, how people are not going to click through to the website as often, but I think the devil's in the details there. So even though people aren't going to click as much, I think that if someone was searching and they, again, go back to the orthopedic example, if they were saying, how do I know when I should see a doctor if I have chronic knee pain or something? The AI summary will give them an answer. But that answer, I mean, that question, if you're really having this pain, you're probably going to want to dig a little bit deeper into that. And so what some studies are starting to show is that if someone does click, and again, there won't be as many people that do, but if they do, you actually get better engagement than from a search from the like typical SEO page. So that's interesting to me because what that is saying is that if you can sort of win this GEO battle and show up when someone is asking something, sure, your views are going to go down, your clicks are going to go down, but the person that actually does click may be of higher value to the practice because they're maybe a little bit further along in their decision or their journey, and they're saying like, okay, I got my answer. Okay, I'm going to do that. What do I really need to know? And then when they click through, they're that much closer to making that appointment.
Have you seen anything yet with like the analytics that were provided through Google or through whatever source showing us how much we're showing up in these AI snippets or how much traffic to our website is a result of AI? Is there anything out there yet?
I haven't seen anything specifically that says that, but I would think that, so I was having this conversation with somebody in with a client the other week and saying that like, so Google they have to walk a very tight line here because they need to keep up with ChatGPT and all of these other search engines, answer engines, but um, their number one revenue source is also ads. And
Hmm.
if you're getting the summaries, well, then you're not going to click on ads. And so I think Google is still trying to figure out exactly how do we balance these things without pissing off the advertisers and losing money, but also providing value so users still come to us and then report on whatever that middle ground is to show that we are still providing value again to users and to advertisers, and that's something I think that's continuing to evolve as they figure out like which way is up. That said, ChatGPT, I saw they just rolled out a shopping piece where you can actually that's going to change e-commerce. So the addition of
Also launched their shopping assistant this
yeah,
past like month, and it's
right.
already changing the way you interact on Amazon.
Yep. And Meta just said too that AI interactions are going to shape ad recommendations. So again, just like basically we're all giving ourselves to these like technology overlords essentially. And when you use these services, you're just giving up all your data. And so what we're starting to see back. So again, the ChatGPT shopping, Meta AI is going to start influencing the ads that you see. That's also going to start happening on Google. All that is to say that the typical lines of reporting is going to change. And so the way that the journey is reported on now, I think if you listen to this episode 365 days from now, it's going to be totally different.
I absolutely agree. I also
Yeah.
think that the like you cannot stress enough the importance of your website right now. And this is probably the year that if you didn't already have a good foundation on the website, that now you're going to need to go ahead and rebuild. Because if you want to be able to show up in these search snippets and you want to be able to show up and be effective in this larger ecosystem, the websites that we built 5 years ago do not work for what's coming ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have a website and you have been keeping up with this, the thing to do is to go in, prioritize your top traffic drivers, and then say, okay, let's go ahead and get these ready for GEO. Let's add some FAQs that are kind of rooted in some of the questions we know people are going to be asking. Let's do step-by-step explainers if that makes sense. Let's maybe make a longer form guide for this. Maybe let's do some video on it. That was another thing I saw when I was researching for this episode, that YouTube dominates AI search with 200 times more of a citation advantage compared to the regular website. In other words, even if no one's watching your video, you should have a video because those are showing up in these snippets too. So if you have even a good foundation, it does make sense to go through your analytics, sort by the most popular and say, okay, let's start here. Let's do these 5, 10, whatever you want, and then update them to prep for this shift.
Yeah. And I think that, thank goodness, I think for ourselves and a lot of our clients, we do so much video that it should be easy enough to go in, do the FAQs, which we've already been doing, taking some of the stuff we've done and just making them into bigger resource hubs that are now truly going to show up in those AI snippets. Corey, we've been talking a lot about Google because we know that Google's number one, but younger people especially, even some other older people, are not just using Google anymore. They're using like TikTok and YouTube as search engines. So how do you deal with that?
Well, I think the top way to do that is to diversify your footprint. So you can't rely on Google alone. You've got to, it makes sense to research your audience, understand where they are, and meet them there. So maybe that's YouTube, maybe that's a podcast, maybe that's TikTok, maybe that's, all of the above, depending on who you're trying to reach. Um, but again, as this journey kind of shifts, like what we were saying earlier, uh, a search that would have started on Google now starts on Perplexity. And Perplexity, same thing. That is a GEO answer engine, and it's going to pull from Google, YouTube, the internet at large, anything it can find to give you these answers and citations. So again, I think if you diversify and make sure that you have, you're following kind of best practices across all of these different channels, that's the easy answer to say that's the best way to show up. And that's also one of the hardest things to do, but unfortunately that's the way the cookie crumbles. That's what we're looking at right now.
All right. All right. So if I'm a marketer at a healthcare practice, and I know this is overwhelming, but specifically, what are a handful of things that I should be thinking about, as we go into the new year, of what I should do to get my house in order to be ready for this kind of next wave of things?
Yeah. So SEO is evolving. I think that's kind of the key takeaway here. It's turning into GEO. Maybe it'll be called something else 6 months from now, but there's opportunity kind of in the chaos here. And now is the time to take advantage of that. And I think the easiest thing to do is go into analytics, look at your top performing pages and posts, and then prep those for GEO. And the prepping of those is at minimum the FAQs to kind of anticipate the full conversation, have multiple questions and answers in there, and then diversify a little bit. So again, if you've put all of your eggs into the Google basket, it might be time to do some video or to lean into some social networks a little bit more than you had been in the past, because those things are all going to start to play a role into how this information gets rolled up and then ultimately presented to the user. Because again, as a consumer, I'm just going to ask Siri something. I haven't,
I don't ask her. She's not very helpful.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
all this stuff, doesn't really matter to me. But if it's going to get its answer from a different source, well, then we need to be prepared for whatever that source is. And for me personally, I don't use Google as much as I used to. I go to Perplexity because I get a better answer oftentimes, quicker, and it's also cited, so I can trust it, and then I can look deeper into that. And so my search habits have changed, just anecdotally. And so again, I think that as the landscape continues to change, and as Gen Z continues to age up, and their habits continue to evolve, and like TikTok is the number one place where they get their news and their information, right? So if you're not on TikTok, maybe you don't need to be this year, but maybe it's something to think about as sort of a long-term play, because eventually Gen Z is going to need some new needs too.
No, I think you're spot on. I think something, I don't think our listeners or folks watching the show are necessarily like want to get into the nitty gritty, but I do think there's a couple of nitty gritty things that we should address. One is, when you're going back and looking at your website, and we see this all the time when we audit websites that other people have built, where like the structure might be a little off, or we're not consistent in our headings and things like that. Can you speak just a little bit about, writing and optimizing for a human versus writing and optimizing for a machine? And what I'm talking about are like how to use FAQs, how to use headings, things like that. Yeah. What are authority signals, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So again, if the whole premise of this is built on the fact that one of these answer engines is going to essentially, you as a user give it a query, and then it's going to run out as fast as it can, search as many websites as it can to give the best answer. That all happens in less than a second. When it does that, we want to be as helpful to those answer engines as possible. And the way to do that is to be consistent and use headings for certain things. And again, be consistent in those. So if you have an article that's all about chronic knee pain, going back to that example from earlier, each subheading within that article should all be heading 2 or heading 3. And you want to be consistent like that. And then you want to be consistent across your entire website, so that when one of these answer engines runs out to check something, it can easily discern, oh, this is related to that. And this is authoritative. There is a concise summary here. Got it. I'm going to go present that. So basically, like, if you are making it easier on the answer engine to perform its job, you are more likely to show up than someone else, because again, it's trying to return that information as quickly and as accurately as possible. So if your website is consistent and is easy for the machine to essentially scan in, less than a tenth of a second, then you've done your homework and you've put yourself in the best position to show up.
Yeah. And I think that it kind of boils down to, it's not just what you can see, it's also some of the stuff you can't see on your website, and making sure that, not just that the house looks clean, but that the house is built on a strong foundation. And, making sure that we're consistent across the board, because we do see that a lot of times, especially if you have a site that's older and you've added on to things over the years. So I think let's just wrap it up, because the truth is, it sounds like there's a real opportunity here for those that are willing to invest the time and energy into optimizing for these new kind of search trends. And it's a little chaotic, but the opportunity lies in the chaos itself.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing to remember too is, again, the numbers are going to shift. You're going to see less organic traffic from Google. That doesn't mean that that's a bad thing, but that's something just to keep in mind as you're looking at reports. It's not the death of SEO. It's nothing like that. It's just an evolution. And from a user standpoint, I think the thing to remember is that although they may not read it on your site, at least not initially, the AI is going to. So you still need to be producing content, and you still need to make sure that it's consistent and you're doing all these things and you're checking all the right boxes, because the user, again, may not click on it and you're going to see the decline there. The AI is going to use it though, and that's how you're going to show up in some of these searches. And again, as the user, whether they go to your website or not, if they are having a thread with, I'm going to use ChatGPT in this example, about chronic knee pain, and it's spitting back information, users oftentimes treat that as a conversation, right? So they're going to say, okay, great. So who is the best doctor near me? Or who is now accepting appointments? How do I schedule? Like, all of that is going to narrow down back to your website if you're doing the right thing and the conversation goes that way. So there's just numerous benefits to being prepared for this shift, because right now we are seeing a shift, but this is phase one. This is the first wave, however you want to say it. But there's a lot more coming right behind it.
Yeah, and it's going to be ongoing. I think the entire ecosystem of the way that we find and receive information is about to change again. But I think that the fundamental, you just got to, put out great stuff. Maybe we have to tweak it a little bit here and there, but if you do the fundamental elements of SEO and websites, this is just that next piece of it. So you just got to keep doing the right thing, and eventually it will pay off. But the opportunity is that your competing practice is probably not focused on this.
Correct.
So if you can get in front of it, then you can get in front of the competition. And that's where the opportunity lies for next year.
Yeah, and those opportunities, they'll present themselves because you'll get better results if you're doing the basics well. And at the end of the day, it's nothing that's different from what we've been talking about for years. It's good marketing. It's understanding your patient, meeting their needs, communicating it clearly, and that will help you show up. And if you show up, then you're going to wind up with more of them.
There you go. So with that, I'm Jennifer.
I'm Corey.
We'll see you next time on the Dr. Marketing Tips Show. Thanks a bunch.
Thanks, guys.
If you want more like this, hit like and subscribe so you'll always be alerted to new episodes when they come out. And if you want information about us, visit us over at insightmg.com. That's insightmg.com. We'll see you on the next episode.